Are my 2023 fragrance favorites still perfumes I'd wear and recommend? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be going over my 2023 fragrance favorites video and sharing with you the 12 perfumes I recommended back then, and also sharing my unfiltered opinions about whether or not I'd still recommend them and if I'm still wearing them today. I do think that tastes change and opinions do evolve, so this kind of video I think is very relevant and useful because I'm able to give you an update on these fragrances and also share how my taste may potentially have evolved since filming that video. If this is your first time on this channel, hello, my name is Anya. I love fragrances. I talk about them here 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. I also post additional content on TikTok and Instagram under the username ANECHKAFRAGRANCES. At this point in time, we're kind of unsure about the future of TikTok when I'm filming this video. But I will say, rest assured, as long as I'm able to, I will continue to post on TikTok. But I do my best to diversify my content across different social media platforms to not stay focused on any one platform. And this is honestly one of the reasons why. So obviously it's a very disappointing outcome what it's looking like right now, but I will continue to post as I continue to be able to. If I cannot, then obviously that will change, but that's where I'm at right now. I also do have a podcast called The Fragrance Report. It's available on Spotify, and I launch a new episode every Wednesday. So yes, I have these fragrances here with me. I was originally going to do like a react with me kind of thing, and I don't think I will be going through my entire video because that was like a 21-minute video, and I don't know if I need to like be reacting frame by frame. But just so you know, this is kind of like the intro of that video. I am excited to share my top 12 fragrances of 2023. These are specifically new discoveries that I made in 2023 or at the tail end of 2022. But these are going to be new discoveries that I made specifically in the past year that I very, very, very much fell in love with. And I'm excited to share these because I think 2023 was definitely my year when it came to fragrances. I really delved into a lot of niche options, more so than I had done in previous years. And I started experimenting more with different notes, different accords. So this is a very diverse list. I have gourmand fragrances, I have florals, I have green, I have rose. I have so much. So let's get started because I don't have a lot of time to film this video. This is actually the first time I've pulled up this video since last year when I just filmed and posted this video. And it's interesting looking back how many things have changed. I definitely do my makeup slightly differently now. And yeah, those lashes were huge. And I still wear lashes right now, but I think I'm a little bit more subtle with like my placement and stuff. And yeah, it's just interesting like looking back on where I was because when I actually filmed this video, I think all of these fragrances were fragrances I purchased with my own money. But due to the growth and engagement from you guys this year, I've been able to build relationships with brands. And a few of the brands that I actually mentioned in that favorites video are brands that I do now have the pleasure of working with today. And that is in large part to you guys, your engagement, your feedback, always coming back and watching my videos. Thank you so much. And I truly do appreciate the engagement that you've had and the role that you've had in making me achieve what I've achieved over this last year. So thank you for that. And yeah, I'm just going to cycle through the fragrances I mentioned. I initially was planning on doing like a live reaction, but I don't really know if that style of video is what I want to do at this point. And I kind of just wanted to like cycle through the fragrances and tell you what I think of them as is. So I'm going to be mentioning all these fragrances today. Keep in mind I've had these for now a very long time, and I'm excited to kind of delve into these with you. I mentioned 2 fragrances from Une Nuit Nomade, and actually in this video I talked about my top 12 fragrances of the year. I actually was planning on cutting it to my top 10, but I was having a really hard time choosing 10 fragrances, so that's why I mentioned 12 in the video. And 2 fragrances I mentioned from Une Nuit Nomade were Sugar Leather and Love at First Sight. And if you watch that original video, and I'm going to link it down below for you to check out, but the dent in Love at First Sight was definitely not as big as it is right now. Une Nuit Nomade, I'm not quite sure, I'd have to check the video out again. But I use these fragrances heavily to this day. I would say these are still 2 of my favorite fragrances in my collection. Love at First Sight is definitely one of the more underrated options from Une Nuit Nomade. This is a fragrance that heavily features the note of lilac, so if you like that kind of like honeyed floral lilac scent, this is definitely a really interesting one to try, and it's really amped up with the addition of the passion fruit note, which adds a fruitiness to it, and there's also ambroxan, which really helps this fragrance have a gorgeous sillage that I absolutely love and adore. So Love at First Sight is one of my favorite floral fragrances of all time. Full stop, this is amazing. And of course, Une Nuit Nomade's Sugar Leather is an iconic fragrance. This was my first niche fragrance, I think, ever. And I remember buying this and I remember just being in love with it. It smells like cinnamon, caramel, leather. There's a bit of resinous accords in here as well, and I think labdanum too, which really helps give that leather the suede-like smoothness that I just love. And this is a top-notch fragrance, and it's iconic for a reason. I love this perfume. I love both of these fragrances. I purchased these with my own money, but I now do have a code available with Une Nuit Nomade, Anya 10, so you can save 10% off your order. And you can also, I think, use the code Anya25 if you want to get a a free 25 milliliter travel spray with your purchase. So looking back on that video especially, it's really interesting to kind of reflect on the fact that I do now have a working relationship with Une Nuit Nomade, because they genuinely were the first niche brand I ever purchased from, and I was just in love with the fragrances. And I remember thinking that as just like a regular customer, I still felt like I was being given really nice treatment by the brand. The experience was lovely, the fragrances were beautiful, the packaging was absolutely stunning, and not every brand is going to have such a big focus on experience, on customer experience, but I really do appreciate that Une Nuit Nomade retains that focus. And as I started off as a customer, and even now as an affiliate, I still have that consistent level of, treatment that I appreciated when I was a customer. And that's why I still continue to support Une Nuit Nomade. They're an amazing brand, and I absolutely love their products. This next fragrance is one that I remember being obsessed with. This is another affordable niche. As mentioned in the intro of this video, 2023 was the year that I really started exploring niche brands, and a lot of these fragrances are niche perfumes, but I really started focusing on affordable niche, specifically fragrances around the $100 mark. And this is absolutely a fragrance that slots into that category quite well. This is Profumo di Firenze Buontalenti, and this was my first fragrance from Profumo di Firenze, and it's a bestseller from the brand now. It's one of their best-selling fragrances. I think it is their best-selling fragrances for a really good reason. This is a fragrance that captures the photorealistic essence of gelato with fruits, bananas, the waffle cone. It's a really beautiful photorealistic perfume. And I will say, interestingly enough, this fragrance does the best in warm weather. That's when the sillage really travels. In the wintertime, it's good as well, but it stays kind of like closer to the skin in the wintertime, in my experience. But in the warm weather, this fragrance just is so good. I did not wear this perfume as much in 2024 as I wore in 2023. I gotta be honest. The dent here is a little bit of a baby dent, but I still love this perfume. It's still one of my favorites. I love Profumo di Firenze. I've since purchased another bottle from them. That was like their almond perfume that they came out with this year, or this past year. But this one is excellent for a reason. It's a beautiful scent. Again, this is Profumo di Firenze Buontalenti. I love this perfume. Next is a fragrance that's a little bit more affordable. This is Velvet Rose by Lattafa. I remember buying this fragrance and just being obsessed with it. And granted, I have not worn this in a long time. It's kind of been on the back burner a little bit. But this is a beautiful perfume that really chronicles the note of rose, but it also has labdanum in there, I believe, as well as a base of patchouli. This perfume comes off kind of like a bubbly champagne-like rose, and the other notes here really help ground this fragrance. Patchouli helps the fragrance last all day, and the labdanum adds like a velvety, kind of suede-like character to this fragrance that I really, really love. And as you can tell, I've worn this perfume a lot, but I'd say I wore it the most heavily in 2023. I'd still recommend this as a good rose fragrance. I think it's quite beautiful. It's one of my favorite Middle Eastern fragrances still. I think it's great, but I just haven't worn it in a while. I probably should wear this more often, but yeah, Velvet Rose by Lattafa. Another rose fragrance that I just absolutely love, and this is still a fragrance that I recommend, and I do think this is probably one of my favorite fragrances from this particular brand, if not my favorite fragrance from the brand, and that would go to Replica's On a Date. I don't know what it is about their marketing, the way they position this fragrance, what is it, but they do not get as much hype surrounding this fragrance as they should. And it's interesting because I've gone with friends to Sephora and had them try the entire range and then brought this up as like an underrated fragrance from the brand. And a lot of people just gravitate towards this fragrance, but for whatever reason, this fragrance is not talked about. So this fragrance has keynotes of grapes and roses. It is also a fragrance that has a kind of like I haven't pulled up the scent pyramid in a while, so let's actually do that right now. But this kind of has like an aromatic rose with vetiver, which I really like. And I think that if you are ever kind of intimidated by rose and you don't want something that's like too floral, this is a really interesting alternative that I really love. So, and this, by the way, this fragrance also is one of the better lasting perfumes by Replica, interestingly enough, since it's still in eau de toilette concentration. But this is a perfume with top notes of blackcurrant syrup, pink pepper, and bergamot, a mid of rose, geranium, and divana, and then a base of patchouli, moss, musk, and vetiver. So the listing on Fragrantica does not list grapes, but that's what's, labeled on the perfume. This is this is a beautiful aromatic rose. It's an aromatic rose that has a gorgeous sillage. It's still a standout for me. A little bit goes a long way. I love this one. And it's one of my favorite designers currently. Not gonna lie, as I'm going through this video, I really do like my taste in fragrances. I would say most of these fragrances are still perfumes that I would wear today, and the ones that I've kind of neglected are still good, but I just haven't worn them in a while. So Idole Nectar by Lancome, this is excellent. If you, again, like the rose note in Idole fragrances, but you want something with a gourmand twist, this is exceptional. This is so good. It's like popcorn, vanilla, caramel, that traditional Idole rose, making this fragrance a little bit more unusual, but still very beautiful. I love this perfume. I love this fragrance. I quite adore it. I definitely recommend it. Still, interestingly enough, I feel like Rose was one of my favorite fragrance notes of 2023. Looking through all these picks, Rose was definitely up there. I loved Rose, clearly. So yeah, I would say some Rose fragrances you are definitely chronically underrated. I feel like people get really kind of nervous about the Rose note, but I personally have always had a special place in my heart for a rose. I mean, for the most part, I believe. But yeah, I love rose fragrances if they're done in a certain way, if they're done in a unique way. And in this case, this is a really good interpretation of a gourmand rose, which you hardly ever hear about, but I love this fragrance. Let's switch things up and talk about a fragrance that's definitely more in the gourmand category. This is Navitus Baklava Royale. This is an extrait de parfum. This was created by the YouTuber Gabby Loves Perfumes, and she is a powerhouse when it comes to gourmand fragrances. And I have tried all the fragrances she's launched with Navitus. I own two of them. One of them is Baklava Royale. I will say, love the bottle. Still, the bottle is amazing. This is a very photorealistic baklava scent with a lot of nutty accords. I think you have toasted almond, pistachio, you have some honey, you have the baklava. This is a very nutty fragrance. If you want a nut-focused fragrance, this is really one to try. It's more focused on, I think, the nuts than any other note in here. But this is a very photorealistic baklava scent. And I will say, I really do like this fragrance. I would say it's a beautiful fragrance to wear, especially in the wintertime. I actually did not wear this fragrance as much in 2024 as I did in 2023, I will admit. I still do think it's a beautiful fragrance, but my tendency this past year has been to lean towards kind of like lighter fragrances that still last a really long time, but this one happens to be a bit on the heavier side, so that's why I've kind of neglected this fragrance. But I still do think if you like the scent description I just gave you, if you want something that's a little bit more intense with the nuts, with the baklava, this is really good. And I also like how there's a touch of honey in here. It's not like too overt. But if I had to choose between Melon Kiss, Gabby's other creation with Navitus, and this one, And those are the two that I own, by the way. If I had to choose between the two, I'd still say Melon Kiss is my favorite. It kind of blows this one out of the water, if I'm being completely honest, but I think both are great. And she also has Chocolate Queen, which I do not own, but I've tried that one. I think that's another really good one. My favorite still stands to be Melon Kiss. I think that Melon Kiss is my favorite from the Gabby Loves Perfumes collaborations. This one's still good. It's not my favorite. So when I was actually getting ready for this video yesterday, I got this fragrance out and I was like, I have to wear it. So I ended up making this like my fragrance of the night, and I am so glad I did. This is an excellent fragrance that I still do think holds up to the test of time. This is a fragrance that still is a standout in my collection, and for a very good reason. This is Cult of Kaori's Onsen Minerale. They launched in 2023 at the tail end at Scent and I went to Scent and we tried, or me and a few other creator friends tried the brand, and we were just blown away by Onsen Minerale. All of us bought like a few bottles, I think, between us, and it ended up being a fragrance that really hit, I would say, like, really got like a little bit of hype in 2024, and it was very well deserved, in my personal opinion. I still do think this fragrance stands the test of time. It's a very unusual perfume. So, as I mentioned in my original video from 2023, 2023 was the year that I started really trying out niche perfumes. But it wasn't as if I had a bunch of expendable income to just spend and blow on niche fragrances. The niche fragrances that I added to my collection all had a special quality to them that made them unusual enough for me to justify spending that kind of money. And I think at this time, this was the most expensive perfume I ever purchased with my own money at the time. And I would say it's still a really worth a purchase, in my opinion, because of how unusual this fragrance is. So there's a lychee aldehyde note in here. I believe that's a fantasy note that really ends up smelling like hot steam. And so there are other woody notes in here as well. And there's also like an aromatic kind of I think cypress note in here too. It ends up smelling like you're sitting in a sauna, and it's absolutely delightful. It's such a warm and cozy fragrance, especially for this time of year. But I love this perfume. And I will say, this is beast mode. A little bit goes a long way, which is why my dent in here is still like relatively small, considering the size of this fragrance and considering the fact that I've had it for so long and I still consistently wear it. This is a perfume in which a little bit goes a long way. Absolutely, this is an amazing fragrance. Still highly recommend it, and I can't wait to see what else Cult of Kaori has in store, because I feel like you guys will really like that. I've smelled a few things, and I'm excited. Next, I have Theodoros Kalotinis Lemon Tart. I have loved Theodoros Kalotinis for several years now, and I feel like every single year I have like a different Theodoros Kalotinis fragrance that I hyper focus on. And in 2023, that accolade definitely went to Lemon Tart. This is a perfume that really focuses on a kind of lemon tart aspect. I mean, literally, it's in the name, but it focuses on that fluffy, buttery pastry with the lemon zest, with the lemon custard, and the whipped cream on top. It's a very buttery fragrance. I will say, when it comes to Theodoros Kalotinis, their gourmands are done in a really special way. I've seen a lot of other iterations of like the kind of lemon tart aspect in other fragrances, and those other perfumes usually focus more on the citrus, they focus more on the custard. In this particular case, you have everything. You're focusing on the citrus, yes, you're focusing on the custard, but you also have a really heavy presence when it comes to like the buttery pastry in here. So this is buttery pastry with all those other elements that make up a lemon tart, and you kind of have to expect that when you're getting this fragrance. I personally love that. I love how this is playing with that lemon tart aspect without being so hyper focused on like the lemon citrus aspect. I like how this is more complex and more unusual. And as you can tell, I use this fragrance considerably. This is a perfume that I just blew through. I love this fragrance. And it still was a fragrance that I picked up in 2024 as well. I loved this perfume ever since I got it. And I really like this fragrance because it gives me like a really positive scent memory that's kind of focused on reinvention. So 2023 was a really interesting year for me just in general. I went through a lot of personal growth, also in 2024, let's be honest, but 2023 especially. Um, but whenever I got this fragrance, I was kind of having like a really interesting summer, gotta admit. And when I got this fragrance, I was super focused on being more independent and really going out of my comfort zone and trying things and experiences that previously I had been too scared or too anxious to even attempt. For example, like that was the summer that I first went on a trip completely by myself, which I had been terrified to do before because I was always so anxious and so nervous about these sorts of things. But 2023, the summertime, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to New York by myself. I'm gonna go to New York by myself, no plan. I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna have my nice little few days vacation and I'm gonna enjoy myself. And that was something that this might sound ridiculous. And it's interesting looking back because now, I mean, I travel primarily by myself. I have done international travel multiple times by myself. So it's interesting looking back on that experience now, but I remember being so nervous about stepping out of my comfort zone because I had so much anxiety surrounding doing these kinds of things by myself. And this fragrance was the fragrance that I was wearing around that point in time. So whenever I pick this fragrance up and whenever I smell it, I always am reminded of how far I've come. And it sounds so cheesy, I know. And to be honest, I don't like to talk a lot about my personal life on this channel. I like to keep certain things under wraps. And obviously, we all have our personal lives, we all have our ups and downs. And I would say fragrance for me has really played a critical role in having some of these memories. So like whenever I smell certain fragrances, I'm transported to who I was in the past, to a particular episode, and I really associate certain fragrances with particular areas in my life. And in this case, Lemon Tart to me is such like a personally significant perfume because this signals a lot of growth and reinvention, and because of that, this fragrance holds a special place in my heart. Okay, I need to speed through this video because I have been yapping so much, so hopefully this is not too long. But Basilica by Milano Fragranze. Honestly, beautiful. Stunning, chef's kiss, amazing, savory gourmand with incense. Um, I just, what's the dent in here? Yeah, I've made a dent in this one. But this is a perfume that I absolutely love, adore. I think this is amazing, and the bottle is stunning, might I add. It's beautiful, but this perfume basically smells like milky bread with herbs in the form of thyme and rosemary and incense. So essentially, this smells like sitting in a church with incense eating za'atar bread. And it's hilarious because I've actually talked to the founder of this brand and I was speaking to her about this fragrance. I was talking about how much I loved it. And I was like, this smells like just like za'atar bread and sitting in a church. And she was like, what? And it's so interesting because like we smell certain things and I think like we all have our personal associations with what it's supposed to smell like. But I can confirm that definitively was not the inspiration behind this fragrance, but when I smell it, that is the closest thing that comes to my mind. Um, I love this fragrance. I think it's amazing. If you're interested in gourmand perfumes, but you want something more unusual and more savory, this is really good. Still love it, still recommend it. This is excellent. Okay, another fragrance that is so mind-blowing to me because again, like I wore this perfume in 2023, loved it, still love it today, and now I have the pleasure of working with this brand, which is amazing. But this is Vow Factor by Snif, and this is essentially a green fragrance with fig. I think there's like a bit of like, there's like a slight tea accord in here and rose. It's such a beautiful fragrance because this perfume plays with that green scent category, but it's not so vegetal that it would be a turnoff for someone who is just getting into this kind of scent category, which I do appreciate. Um, I feel like a lot of times, sometimes the green fragrances can lean too vegetal, And right now, like, I still actually do like those kinds of fragrances. But when I first got this fragrance, I was not interested in green perfumes as I am today. This was kind of like my gateway into the green scent family, and I am so glad to be there. But this perfume was created by Amelia. She's also known as Professor Perfume on social media. And I had the pleasure of meeting her not once, but twice in 2024, which is insane. The first time I met her, I was just like fangirling, and I just straight away said, I love Vow Factor so much. Thank you for creating it, or something along the lines of that. And she was so gracious and so sweet. And yeah, she's just amazing. Like, she is genuinely down to earth, so lovely, and I'm really happy to have this fragrance, and again, really happy to be working with Snif. I feel like I should clarify, when I say working with, I'm not saying that anyone's sponsoring this video, but I do have codes with the fragrances I just mentioned, so that's honestly amazing. So just wanted to mention that as well. Okay, so this fragrance is gorgeous. Still love it, still adore it. It's one of my favorite fragrances in like my collection in general. But this is Haramain Junoon Noir. The way I procrastinated on getting this fragrance originally, I was like, it can't be that amazing. It's amazing. I love it. I would say the fragrance, like the bottle itself, I think has like worn down a bit, but I can kind of see the level of this fragrance, and I believe it's like up to here. I wear this fragrance a lot. It's kind of like one of my favorite like musky vanillas with like a woody touch. And there's a bit of fruitiness in here too. There's some citrus at the top as well. It's a very complex fragrance that I just love. This smells amazing. It's a powerhouse fragrance that lasts all day, but it's not a fragrance that's too loud in any way. It just is super long lasting. I love this perfume. I love this fragrance. It's excellent. Yeah, this is beautiful. Still wear it, still love it, still recommend it. Yeah. So I feel like these are like 12 really strong fragrances. Like, these are beautiful perfumes that I still love, still recommend. And yeah, it's kind of like it was fun going down memory lane with you guys. Thank you for listening to me yap about all these. But I think it's just really interesting having kind of not like the super longevity, but being able to reflect on past videos and kind of see where things have evolved, where things have changed. Obviously, I still love these perfumes, and as I mentioned, I was wearing some of these in 2024. The ones I wasn't wearing as much, I'm glad that we filmed this video, because then I'm able to kind of like pick up on them and revisit them, so I'm really happy about that. But let me know, is there anything that you were trying over a year ago that you still really love today? Is there anything from this video that you really feel stands out at you? And if you've been watching since when I first published that 2023 Fragrance Favorites video, let me know, because that would be epic. Once again, this kind of video really makes me reflect on my growth and what I've accomplished. And again, that is such a credit to you guys, the engagement that we have, the community that we're building, and that truly is so amazing and so rewarding for me, being able to kind of reflect on how things have changed, reading your comments, chatting with you guys. It's just such a privilege. So anyway, that's it for this video today. Thank you for watching till the end, and I will see you next time. Bye.